The atrium of the Nexus Dynamics headquarters was a temple to silicon and steel. A 30-foot-tall digital waterfall cascaded down one wall, and the air hummed with the quiet power of immense wealth. It was the launch party for their newest product, the Nexus L2, and everyone who was anyone in tech was there. I stood near a potted fern that probably cost more than my car, nursing a glass of champagne that felt like acid on my tongue. At the center of it all, on a stage lit like a rock concert, was my older brother, Julian. 38 years old, tanned, and radiating a confidence that felt like a physical force. He was a billionaire, a tech messiah, a visionary. The crowd erupted as he finished his presentation. The holographic display behind him showed the Nexus L battery, my battery, powering everything from phones to electric jets. "Thank you. Thank you." Julian beamed, soaking in the adulation. He shielded his eyes from the spotlights, scanning the crowd. "But you know, success isn't just about the technology. It's about the people who believe in you. It's about family." My heart, a bitter, shriveled thing, gave a painful thud. "In fact," he said, his eyes locking onto mine with terrifying precision, "my little brother is here tonight. Leo, come on up here." A spotlight swung and hit me, blinding me. The crowd parted. 1,000 faces turned, expecting a heartwarming moment. I felt frozen, a deer in the gaze of a predator. I forced my feet to move, walking the long, humiliating journey to the stage. Julian threw a heavy arm around my shoulders, pulling me close. He smelled of expensive cologne and ambition. "This is Leo," he announced, his voice booming through the speakers. "A talented guy, really. He's had some setbacks. But he's a reminder that not everyone is cut out for the pressure of real innovation. He actually had a silly little idea for a battery years ago, all theoretical, no practical application, you know how dreamers are, while I was in the lab, doing the real work that led to this." He gestured grandly to the hologram of my design. The crowd tittered, a polite, condescending sound. He had just framed my life's work as a child's doodle and himself as the pragmatic genius who made it real. He was publicly erasing me from my own story. I stood there, under the hot lights and the weight of 1,000 pitying stares. Julian squeezed my shoulder, a gesture that looked affectionate but felt like a warning. I didn't shove him. I didn't yell. I simply looked out at the sea of faces, and then up at the hologram of my stolen invention. And I smiled. It was a small, quiet, secret thing. My name is Leo Thorne. I'm 35. 10 years ago, I was a penniless grad student in materials science, working day and night on a novel graphene silicon anode structure. It was my masterpiece. My brother Julian was a business major who barely passed high school chemistry, a fact I know because I spent every afternoon for a year tutoring him, drawing diagrams on napkins, explaining valence electrons until I was hoarse. I helped him build a future, never imagining he would steal mine. The betrayal happened 8 years ago. I was broke, desperate for funding, and Julian, who just landed a job at a venture capital firm, offered to help. "I'll be your business guy, Leo. You be the brains. We'll be a team, just like old times." I trusted him. He was my brother. I gave him all my data, my lab notes, my prototypes. He said he needed them to create a pitch deck for investors. For 2 months, he was a ghost. Emails went unanswered. Then, the news broke. Julian Thorne, with a mysterious, unnamed team of researchers, had filed a patent for a revolutionary energy storage solution. It was my design. Down to the last nanometer. When I finally confronted him, screaming in our mother's living room, he was calm. Cold. "Leo, be realistic," he'd said, sipping a coffee. "You had an idea. I built a company. Ideas are worthless without execution. My lawyers have ensured the patent is airtight. If you try to fight this, you'll be buried in legal fees until you're living on the street." walk away. His accomplice wasn't a mistress or a partner, it was the system itself. The legal firewall his money could buy. He had exploited my trust, my love, and my poverty. He didn't just steal my invention, he stole my future, my credibility, and my passion. I spent the next 8 years in a haze of bitterness, working a dead-end tech support job, watching my brother become a god on television. The inciting humiliation at the launch party was the spark, but the fuel had been simmering for years. I went home to my cramped apartment, the sound of the crowd's laughter still ringing in my ears. I was done being bitter. I was ready to be brilliant. In a rage, I tore my apartment apart, looking for something, anything, to anchor me. And I found it. Tucked away in a mildewed box in my closet was my old high school chemistry textbook. The cover was faded, the spine cracked. I opened it. My handwriting filled the margins, notes I'd written to explain concepts to Julian. Diagrams of molecules, reaction chains, step-by-step logic for solving problems. On the inside cover, in my teenage script, I had written, "For Julian. Remember, chemistry is just puzzle solving. You can do this. Leo." That was it. The final, brutal clarity. He hadn't just forgotten my help, he had erased it from his history. He pretended he was always the genius. I didn't need a billion-dollar lab. I needed fundamentals. Julian's Nexus cell was a masterpiece of engineering, but it was also incredibly complex and expensive to produce, reliant on a patented, proprietary catalyst. My original design was elegant and simple, but he had over-engineered it to make it his. My new goal wasn't to replicate his product. It was to obsolete it. I turned my apartment into a lab. I used my savings to buy second-hand equipment. My nights and weekends were spent not on revenge fantasies, but on chemistry. I went back to the puzzle. I focused on the catalyst. Julian's used a rare earth metal, the sourcing of which was both ethically dubious and costly. My revenge would be pure, elegant, and cheap. For 18 months, I worked. I failed 1,000 times. But I was driven by a cold, focused fury that my younger, idealistic self never possessed. I wasn't trying to get a patent. I was trying to create a ghost that would haunt his empire. The stake was my soul. My dignity. And the entire market he dominated. The turning point came at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. A reaction completed in a beaker on my stovetop. The resulting compound was a dull gray powder. It looked like nothing. But when I tested it, the results were undeniable. It was more stable, more conductive, and exponentially cheaper to produce than the catalyst at the heart of the Nexus cell. I had done it. I had synthesized Nexus Bane. I didn't file a patent. I didn't form a company. I compiled everything. The complete, step-by-step synthesis process. The list of common, inexpensive chemicals required. The schematic for a simple, open-source reactor that could be built in a university lab or a well-equipped garage. I wrote it all in a clean, simple PDF. I created an anonymous digital identity, a ghost in the machine just like I had become in real life. I titled the document, "The Thorn-Opened Cell, A Guide to Liberated Energy." In the introduction, I wrote, "Dedicated to the forgotten tutors, the erased collaborators, and the stolen ideas. Knowledge belongs to the world." With a single click, I uploaded the PDF to every major scientific forum, open-source hardware repository, and academic preprint server I could find. I set it free into the digital wild. The envelope was open. The letter was addressed to the world.It took 3 days for the world to notice. And then it exploded. My phone rang. It was Julian. His voice was a strained wire. "Leo. We need to talk. Now." I met him at his penthouse apartment. The view of the city was breathtaking, but the atmosphere inside was suffocating. Julian stood before the floor-to-ceiling window, his back to me. The silence was heavy. "There's a file," he began, not turning around. "Circulating online. It's a joke. A hoax." "Is it?" I asked, my voice calm. He spun around, his face a mask of controlled panic. "It has to be you. This atrocity, it reeks of your petty, small-minded jealousy. Anger. Do you have any idea what you've done? You've destabilized a multi-billion-dollar market. You've endangered thousands of jobs. You endangered my entire future once," I replied. "I think we're even." Manipulation. His expression shifted. He walked toward me, his hands open, pleading. "Leo, brother. Listen to me. This is a mistake. We can fix this. I was wrong. I see that now. I was arrogant. I'll give you a seat on the board. A vice presidency. 10% of the company. We can patent this new process together. We can be a team again." He was so transparent. He wasn't offering me a partnership, he was trying to put the genie back in the bottle. To control and patent my revenge. "I'm not interested in your company, Julian," I said. "I'm not interested in your money. I'm only interested in the truth." Begging. The facade shattered. The billionaire crumbled into a scared, desperate man. "Please, Leo. I'm begging you. Recant it. Say it was flawed data. Say it was a theoretical exercise. The stock is in freefall. The board is going to oust me. You'll destroy me." I looked at him, my brother, finally brought to his knees not by a superior corporation, but by a better idea, freely given. "I know," I said, my voice quiet but absolute. "I didn't just release a formula, Julian. I released your obituary. Your flagship product is now obsolete. Every one of your competitors, and every kid in a garage, can now make a better, cheaper version. You built an empire on a single, expensive secret. I just gave the secret away." The color drained from his face as the full, brutal finality of it hit him. This wasn't a lawsuit he could fight. This wasn't a competitor he could buy or crush. This was an idea. And you can't kill an idea. "How?" he whispered, collapsing into a chair. I reached into my bag and pulled out the old, worn chemistry textbook. I placed it gently on his multi-million-dollar coffee table. "You forgot the basics, Julian," I said. "You forgot that I was the one who taught you how to solve puzzles. And this was the hardest one I've ever solved." Our parents were heartbroken. They tried to remain neutral, but the truth was undeniable. My mother cried. "My boys, how did it come to this?" "He did this, Mom," I told her, showing her the textbook, the notes in the margin. "He stole from me and then he humiliated me. I didn't want to destroy him. I just wanted what was mine. And when that was impossible, I decided no one would own it." Julian tried to justify himself to them. It was business. He wasn't capable. I made something of his silly idea. His excuses only made him sound more hollow, more pathetic. They saw the brilliant, cruel thief he had become. Their sympathy, however conflicted, ultimately lay with the son who had been wronged, not the one who had done the wronging. The tech world, his fickle god, turned on him overnight. He was no longer a visionary, he was a cautionary tale. News outlets ran stories with titles like "The House of Cards Battery" and "The High Cost of Betrayal." The narrative was set: the brilliant, wronged brother outsmarts the greedy billionaire. The collapse was swift and merciless. Nexus Dynamics stock plummeted 92% in a week. The board of directors voted unanimously to remove Julian as CEO. The SEC opened an investigation into the original patent filing, fueled by the now public story of its dubious origins. His assets were liquidated to pay off shareholders and mounting legal fees. The penthouse, the cars, the private jet, all gone. The company that bore his name was sold for scraps to a rival, who immediately announced they would be transitioning to the superior, open-source Thorn design. Julian wasn't just bankrupt, he was unemployable, blacklisted, and the subject of universal ridicule. The weapon he used to build his empire, a locked-down, proprietary patent, became the very reason his empire was so vulnerable. He had built a fortress, and I hadn't besieged it, I had simply taught everyone how to build a better home outside its walls. I didn't take a penny from the fallout. My reward was my freedom. I used my notoriety to launch a non-profit, the Open Science Collective, dedicated to developing patent-free technologies for the developing world. I am now a respected, if controversial, figure in the scientific community, a champion of open knowledge. The bitterness is gone, replaced by a quiet purpose. I have a partner who loves me for my mind, and a life built on transparency, not secrets. The poetic justice is absolute. My brother, who believed knowledge was a commodity to be owned and exploited, was destroyed by knowledge that was set free. His own weapon, the patent system, became irrelevant that I didn't take a penny from the fallout. My reward was my freedom. I used my notoriety to launch a non-profit, the Open Science Collective, dedicated to developing patent-free technologies for the developing world. I am now a respected, if controversial, figure in the scientific community, a champion of open knowledge. The bitterness is gone, replaced by a quiet purpose. I have a partner who loves me for my mind, and a life built on transparency, not secrets. The poetic justice is absolute. My brother, who believed knowledge was a commodity to be owned and exploited, was destroyed by knowledge that was set free. His own weapon, the patent system, became irrelevant that he stole my patent to build a walled garden, believing it would make him a king. I simply taught the world how to grow better flowers in the soil outside his gates. Remember, the highest form of revenge isn't theft, it's rendering the stolen goods worthless.